Hey up and welcome to another episode of Last Cast. Today you join us on a really nice short section of the Huddersfield Narrow Canal just outside Marsden. Interestingly, it's just beneath a reservoir called Sparth, which is somewhere that we might fish in future. But we've actually come down here to have a look at the canal today, and as you can see it's a really short section. At best you've got 90 yards of length. There's sort of a mooring sort of section towards the bridge end there where it's a bit deeper. Obviously you don't want to go fishing there, so we've come down here, and as you can see we've picked a bit of a feature peg. We've got a nice little bush to fish to today, in a section of canal that's probably at best 11 and a bit metres wide. So that's basically going to dictate the approach that we're going to use today. As I say, today we're going to fish it sort of kind of like a match scenario type thing, as we've done in previous episodes. We're going to fish for 6 hours and just see what we can catch. So that's why I've got plenty of gear set up around me, loads of different baits and bits and bats, and like I say, the session's not going to be particularly structured. I'm just going to try and catch as much as I can out of the peg. So I'll quickly run through sort of my thinking behind what I'm going to do today. With it being such a narrow section of canal, I don't really see the virtue in fishing 5 metres, something like that, or 4 metres. Say things that you'd see me do on the Calder and Hebble where it's quite a wide bit of canal, you want to try and catch those fish short. Here 6 metres or the top kit in 3 sections gets me effectively 2/3 of the way across, and that's where the canal starts to shelve up there quite nicely out of the boat channel, which is just on our near side here. And that's where I'm actually going to put my first line, which is going to be a bread line. I'm going to sort of chop and change between fishing bread. As you can see, I've got a variety of baits, but I'm going to look to start with bread. I'm going to bring in some pinkies and squats a bit later on ground bait. I may even feed a line down the track with ground bait as well. Again, it just depends on boat traffic. And I'm also going to look to feed a chop worm and cast a line across towards that bush. So as I say, there's plenty of things going on today. We're going to chop and change and see what we can do in terms of getting the most out of the peg. But initially I'll run you through that first line that I'm going to fish. As I say, it's a bread punch line. I've already covered bread punch fishing before, but I'll quickly cover a few of the basics again. With it being a short section of canal, bait choice and what you do with your punch crumb is essential. Obviously, if a boat does come through today, it's on a Friday, so we might get a bit of boat traffic. I need that bait to stay absolutely pinned to the bottom. So this punch crumb's really heavily wetted and full of gravel, so it's going to go to the bottom and stay there. I'm not looking to feed sort of a mush or anything like that, or anything that will cloud up. I want this bait to go straight to the bottom and catch nice and quick. That way, if a boat does come through, then I can always move lines nice and quickly and get fishing nice and fast. Again, I've plumbed up a line down the track in the deepest point, and I might use bread there as well. In terms of the punch, it's dead simple. I'm going to use 3mm punch today. Maybe if there seems to be 1 or 2 better roach, or say I'm getting plagued by small fish, I'll move to a 4mm. But I've just got usual kind of Warburton's toasty, rolled or pressed with a knife really, microwave for 10 seconds, and that's what I'm using, just a small piece like that. In terms of the other lines that I'm looking to fish, as I say, I've got a squat line that I might move onto and a ground bait line down the middle. So I've mixed up a bag there of ground bait. Again, with it being a short section, the mix that I've used is in relation to that. Basically, as I said, if there's going to be a lot of lock movement, a nice heavy mix, I'm using Census River mixed with Census Bream Black 50/50. So quite a rich mix, but really nice and heavy. So if a boat does go through, it's going to stay on the bottom. And as I say, that's pretty much it. We'll run you through the rig stead quickly that I'm going to use. Standard bread punch rig that you'll see me use for all my bread punch fishing on the canal. This is the one that I'm fishing across at 6 metres. You can see we've got a Census SA2 float there, hollow tip, thin bristle, and pencil body wire stem. Again, want it to set nice and quick. Usual kind of thing, bulk and 2 droppers, really compact in about 6 inches above a 5-inch hook length, down to an 093 Drennan Suplex fluorocarbon hook length with a 22 B511. It's keeping things dead simple. So like I say, we've had a look at that. We'll get onto the bread punch now and see what we can catch. Right, so we're going to kick off the 6 hours today, and then like I said, I'm going to start on the bread punch. Just a quick note on that last week that I said, the hook length's actually 075 fluorocarbon, so a lot lighter than what I was saying. The main line's 093. What I was going to mention at that point is the fact that we don't really know what's in this bit of canal. It's not a section that I've fished before, and I know the Huddersfield Narrow tends to be sort of a sort of canal that responds more to little and often feeding sort of much more refined gear than what we tend to use on the Calder and Hebble. So with that in mind, lighter rigs like that and smaller amounts of feed, all I'm going to kick off with there is a tiny little sort of Konkan golf ball size ball of punch crumb, and I'm going to feed that, like I say, on that 6 metre line across. One thing to note that I am going to do, because of the sloping nature of where I am fishing up against that sort of across, well, opposite the boat channel really, is I'm actually going to cup this in right at the end of the section and fish effectively short of it, because I know that the bait will roll down the slope slightly, so it's one thing to consider. and then should I need to, I can actually push the rig further up the banking there and lay on over depth as well. So I've got options in terms of doing that rather than having to move the float around. So I've got a far bank marker. I'm just popping that bait in there. You can see with the gravel it goes straight in, effectively goes straight to the bottom. So what I'm not going to do yet is feed any other lines. I'm going to start on the bread punch and, like I say, feel my way into the session. If a boat does go through and ruins the bread punch line, then I will actually go on to fishing squat and pinky. But my plan of attack basically today is to start on that line that I've just cupped in there. Then if that does dry up, what I'll start to do then is consider putting a ball of ground bait in with my squat and pinky line and start loose feeding there. But also when I feed that, I will feed a line on bread punch down the track as well, so it gives me somewhere to go. Like I say, with bread being an instant bait, what I want to be able to do is keep fish coming all through the session. So with it being a short section of canal, the last thing that you want to be doing, or a narrow section of canal, is having loads of lines fed, because that's basically going to split your fish. What you want to do is catch them in one area. Well, that's my way of thinking anyway. Catch them in one area and give them an option of somewhere to move. So like I say, if that bread line does start to dry up, I've got a squat and pinky line that I've plumbed up that's about 5 yards away to the left hand side. And I can just cup in a ball of ground bait there, and whatever fish have backed off from the bread should be able to catch them there. Like I say, it's hard to sort of make it make sense on camera, but that's sort of the plan that I'm running with today. So we'll go for the first drop in of the session. Again, what I always like to do with my bread punch is keep it in one of my side drawers just to make sure it stays nice and fresh. Again, the last thing that you want to be doing is having it out in the open air, because that's when it will dry out and it won't stay on the hook. So what I'm doing as well, to aid sort of the speed factor of bread fishing, is I like to punch out one piece of bread, and then before I get my rig into the water, I punch out another one so it's ready effectively. If I'm on fish, I can ship straight back in and get a bait on nice and quick. So we'll go for the first drop in of the session. As you can see, I'm fishing a much longer line than I would tend to on a bread punch line like this, between pole float and tip, and that's purely because of the wind. And all I'm doing is starting with the float about 3/4 of an inch off the bottom. Bit of an indication straight away there. So hopefully it won't be long before we get a bite. As I say, the main idea behind what I'm doing today is looking to sort of chase fish around the peg. What I don't want to do is pile in loads of bait at the start and basically spook everything, or have a really good start and then the peg just to go dead. I need to sort of wean the fish onto the bait and just catch them wherever I can. There's a bite and a fish straight away. See, one thing I didn't mention as well is elastic choice. On this rig I've gone for a number 4, just to make sure, as you can see there, that I can swing these fish out nice and quick. Again, there's no point fishing really light elastics with bread punch fishing, in my opinion. I like to be able to get the fish out nice and quick, and obviously using slightly bigger hooks that you can get away with on bread punch. As I say, I've started with a 22, but it won't be long before I'll look to start to move on to sort of a 20 or even an 18 if I know there's some skimmers there. Using a number 4 just means you can get the fish out much quicker, and you're not worried if you do hook a bonus fish. Again, the way I like to put my rig in when I am bread punch fishing as well is to swing the bread to the side and then let the bulk come underneath the float sort of in mid-air, and then I like to drop the float in. Again, pencil pattern floats are ideal for that. You're fishing nice and quick with them. So one thing you might be able to see as well is I've got the float dotted right down as well, because with bread punch you can get a few lift bites and a few missed bites. So I don't like to have too much float showing, but by using a hollow tip float you can get away with it, because that hollow tip has enough buoyancy just about to support the bread, so it will fly under at the slightest bite. But it's still nice and visible, and like I say, it's just something I like to fish with. And every so often just going to lift and drop with the float. Again, that can very often entice a bite on the bread punch. There's another fish on now. You can see decent start in a couple of minutes there. I've had a few fish. These are really good weight builders, these. So what I will do as well with the bread punch on a session like this is I'll actually pretty much fish out the initial feed till I don't get any bites at all. One thing I have noticed from the rare occasions that I have fished the Huddersfield Narrow is that the last thing you want to be doing is topping up regularly. On the Cauldron Hebble it works really well to do that. It seems to keep the stamper fish up, whereas here it seems to have the opposite effect. The stamper fish seems to drop, so what I'll do is just fish this ball of punch crumb out and then I'll probably look to move. But another point worth noting as well that you might see is, with it being such a narrow section of canal and, as you can see, quite a busy little towpath, is again that's one of the other factors why I've decided to start a fair way across the canal rather than sort of on a top kit or a top kit and two. Just think the fish will feel slightly safer there, and yet it's still a nice short distance to ship back nice and quick, so like I say, aiding that speed factor of catching these fish on the punch. There's another one on now. You can see hopefully as the fish start to work their way through this, that little nugget of punch crumb, the stamper fish should get bigger and the bites should be more sort of forthcoming. We should get quicker bites, but as I say, little things like having that punch ready like we have in the side draw, as you can see, slip that bit of punch on, punch out another piece, close the draw. It can be in and out really nice and quick. Looking at things, the stamper fish is really quite good so far, by canal standards anyway. About an ounce or two a piece, so it shouldn't be long if we keep up like this before we're starting to build a nice little weight in the net. Again, hopefully if the fish do back off from the bread punch, I should be able to still catch them on squat and pinky over there. So still giving myself plenty of options. There's another one on now already. Again, good stamp fish these. This might be a little hybrid actually. That's a nice roach, that one. You see, that's the stamper fish that we're really after. That's a lovely canal roach, that. Easily 2 or 3 ounces. Those are real weight builders. So hopefully when we get back out there should be a few more of those waiting. Right, there's another fish on now. This feels like a better stamp roach, this. See a nice stretch in that number 4 elastic. This is only the 6th or 7th fish we've had on the bread. Again, just take it nice and careful. Little size 22 B511 hook, and that's a lovely roach. So it won't take us long to build a weight of fish if we're catching these every chuck in. Look at that for a lovely roach. Really chunky fish, that. Again, it could well be the choice of starting to fish across like that. That means we're keeping the stamper fish up. Again, I'd expect to catch sort of gudgeon and smaller roach closer in, but these are the fish that we're really after. See, that's a cracking one. So just get another piece of punch on nice and quick and get back out there. Right, so after that good roach there, we're going to get back out there again. I say clearly there's quite a few fish there. So as I said initially, I'm going to stick with my plan of just fishing this ball of punch out until there's no more bites at all, and then I'll probably look to move. We've had a fantastic start so far. I can't believe the stamper roach that we're catching already. Really are quality fish. See, there's a little bit of movement on the float there, and there's another one on now. Might be able to see the float when there's less of a ripple on the surface, but today there's a bit of wind coming down this short section of canal. And that's another lovely stamp roach. Looks like a cormorant or a pike might have had him at some point. So he's got quite a big scar across his back, so he could have been nicked by a cormorant, that one. As you can see, with fish in the punch, he's nailed right in the top lip. See, lovely fish. Bit of a mark on him where he's been nicked by something, but say it doesn't seem to be affecting them too much. See, by having the float dotted right down as well, getting really nice positive bites. As I say, hopefully we can keep going with these roach, get a good rhythm going. We might well put together a nice net before they move off, or like I say, there's always the risk of a boat going through. So I say, got to make the most of those fish while they're there. One little thing that I will point out dead quick is in relation to how we've got the gear set up today. As you can see, we're on a fairly tight tow path, so it's really important that you keep all your landing net pull, which is why you can see me shipping it back at a bit of an awkward angle, and likewise you pull out of the way, keeping it along the tow path and trying to cause as little obstruction as possible. Obviously somewhere like this you're going to get lots of dog walkers and cyclists, so the last thing you want to be having is your pole getting snapped or having things damaged. So one thing that I also do as well is put my barrow behind my pole roller, again just making sure that no one can get behind there and, like I say, get caught up with the pole or whatever it might be. So it's a useful little thing to do that. Same again with your top kits, having those along the bank and having them on a roost rather than just on the floor. Again, just minimising the risk of them getting damaged. So although it would be much quicker here to ship straight back across the tow path, there's another fish on now. This one's pulling back a little bit. I say, although it would be much more ideal to ship straight back across the tow path, you just have to be mindful of other people using the canal. This feels like a really nice roach, this. Like I say, keeping your gear out of the way. That's a cracking fish. See, lovely colours on them. And that's a belting roach. See, it looks more like a rudd that. It could be a roach rudd hybrid actually, but I suspect it's a pure roach. Getting nailed right in the top lip. See, really chunky fish these. An absolutely excellent stamp to be catching out of the canal. Again, so like I was saying there with what I'm doing with the landing net, the way I like to have it is laid across next to my roost, again, just keeping things out of the way. So it's a bit awkward when you're used to fishing on, say, commercials or big natural lakes where you can have all your kit behind you and all that kind of stuff. But you just have to get used to it, shipping back at awkward angles and being mindful when you're using your landing net. But one thing you'll already notice as well with the fishing on this punch is already as the fish are working their way through the breadcrumb, each fish that we've caught consecutively now has actually got bigger every single time. I think we're on our 8th or 9th fish so far, and the stamp just keeps getting bigger. So one thing that I don't want to do is top up. Like I say, I want to fish this line till it's absolutely dead, and then I'll consider what to do from there. That's a much smaller fish, just as I said that though. But again, decent stamp fish, and we're putting plenty of weight in the net in catching these. If I catch a few more small fish like that, I'll remove the barb just to sort of speed up the factor of unhooking. But again, with the awkward shipping back, ideally I prefer to use barbed hooks just to make sure that I minimise the risk of the hook dropping out. Again, it's one of those things that you do have to weigh up when you are fishing a canal like this. The last thing I want to be doing is hooking a pound plus roach and losing it because I've not got that little sort of security with a microbarb. But it's definitely starting to fish really quite well now with the bread. As I say, you don't need to go feeding much on this canal. There's another bite there. On the Cauldron Headblad, I've already probably topped up by now. Usually somewhere like that I start with a really big ball of punch crumb and top up after every sort of 5 or 6 fish sometimes. Whereas here, when I fished it in the past, that's the last thing I want to be doing because it does seem to ruin the stamp of fish that you're catching. You can see you've got a bit of a ripple on the surface now, so it's a bit hard to see the float. Again, still getting plenty of indications. So what I'm going to do is just come back by a couple of inches on the pole. Again, coming back down that shelf a bit more, so that'll put the hook bait a bit further off the bottom. Hopefully that'll mean we get a more positive bite. And there we go, that's a fish on straight away. Again, little changes like that are always worth thinking about. Like I was saying about using that number 4 elastic, can swing these stamp fish to hand nice and easily. And just nicked on the inside of the top lip, that one. Get another couple of ounces in the net. So as I say, we'll crack on with this now and hopefully start to put a decent weight in the net. And once it does dry up, then I think I'll look to continue using the punch crumb, but probably down the track at a slightly shorter distance. But we'll keep you updated, especially if we start hooking a few better roach as well. As you can see, we've had a strong start, so we'll see what else we can catch on this line before it dries up, and then we'll look to move. Right, so we've just hooked another fish now on the bread punch line at 6 metres or 6.5, whatever it might be. But one thing that I have noticed is that bites have, just pulled out of that one, bites really have dried up there. I've had to wait quite a while for that bite. Although I said in the intro that I wasn't going to top up that line though, what I am going to do is just put in a tiny little nugget and just see, because the stamp fish was that good over that line, if I can get them turned up there again in that kind of stamp, then it's worth just trying it. Again, I'm only going to put in a tiny amount of feed there, but it's sort of a shot to nothing. If I can't catch over this little top up of punch, then what I will do is feed the squat line. But if it makes sense, what I'm also going to do now is once I've topped up the longer line on the bread punch, I'm actually going to top up down, well, feed down the track, sorry, with the bread punch as well, to give myself somewhere to go. So you can see, tiny little ball of bait, that hardly any real food content in there. I'm just going to pop that on that 6 metre line, as I said. Then once I've fed this, I'm going to feed short on that sort of down the track line. What I've done is plumbed up in the deepest water I can find in front of me, which interestingly here, plumbing up is one of those things that you've really got to take your time with and do it sort of half a section at a time. I found that here, the boat channel, there is a definite V. There's a certain point where it's the deepest, and then just out of that point it shallows up, even if you move sort of 6 inches further or 6 inches nearer. So that hopefully that should hold a few fish. So I'm going to actually feed a ball of punch crumb down there as well now. Again, while I feed that short line, that longer line, ball of punch crumb's got that few sort of seconds to break up. And hopefully, if the fish do want to turn up back there, I should catch them. But in terms of what I'm feeding down the track, you can see I'm feeding a much bigger ball of punch crumb there. Again, I would expect to catch a few skimmers down there, potentially, if they are in this section. But equally, that's where I'd expect to catch bigger roach, so more feed down there. And like I say, loaded with gravel, so it'll go straight in there. And because I've plumbed up, it should sit in that V and it shouldn't move anywhere as well. It's not like across where we've had to come back about 2 or 3 inches away from the feed as the feed starts to be moved by the fish and roll down that shelf. Here, the fish should be absolutely nailed in one spot. What I have done as well, that's worth noting, I've made a marker on my pole as to where I'm actually going to fish. So I'll just have to take a second to find that now, but I've used a little bit of marker pen, but one thing that you can do is use, say, a bit of electrical tape, something like that, to mark it on your pole to get the correct distance. So again, using the same far bank marker as we were using on the long line, just going to put that ball of punch crumb in. Again, you can see with the gravel and the heavily wetted mix, straight to the bottom and next to no cloud. So that's my second line fed. Like I say, if we don't catch across on the punch line in the next sort of minute or two, then what I will do is feed that squat line and come short on the bread. Again, it's quite hard to sort of describe what I'm doing, but as I say, the key thing is giving yourself options on these short bits of canal, plenty of places to move and try and catch a few fish. But it'll be interesting to see if those fish have moved back over the punch. Again, it's not something I'd expect. In past experience fishing the Huddersfield Narrow, you don't tend to catch after refeeding that well. But as I say, the stamper fish is quite surprisingly big here, so you never know. It's worth just giving it a shot. As I say, if there's a few feeding fish there and we're trying to catch the biggest weight possible today, there's no point switching and moving away from them. So it'll be really interesting to see if we do get an instant response after topping up on that line. Again, we're about sort of 45 minutes into the session so far, and we've had an incredibly good start. In terms of the stamp of roach that we've caught, we've had a few that have been sort of 2, 3, 4 ounces, something like that. So we've got well over a pound in the net in less than now, which, as I say, on canals is a fantastic weight to be sort of aiming for. So I'm just going to sit this out with a bread punch for a couple of minutes. So all the while the bread punch is breaking up down the track as well, so there should be fish turning up on that. So again, it means that if I don't catch anything on this, I can come in short down the track and hopefully catch nice and quick. There's no point trying to catch the first couple of fish that turn up over the feed, in my opinion anyway. It's just the way I like to fish. Give a line at least sort of 5 or 10 minutes to settle. Then hopefully the fish will have their confidence up by the time you do have a go on it. Again, the other thing to consider as well is that we do have a chop worm and caster line plumbed up. Again, I've not fed it initially because I want to just try and concentrate on getting the most fish out of one area. I don't want to be, as I said, splitting my fish across this narrow section of canal. On wider bits of canal, I'd usually feed 2 or 3 lines at the start and then give myself the option of rotating between them. But as I say, places like this, my preferred method is to try and catch as many fish off one line as I can and then move. I think that just means that you're getting the most out of the shoal of fish while they're there, but also you're not spooking all of them. You're giving them plenty of water where there's no bait to sort of back off to. Let's get no indications as yet after the refeed, which is pretty much what I expect. As I say, it's a shot to nothing. If the fish want to back off from that punch crumb on this 6 metre line, then they will sort of sit probably 5 or 10 feet away, and as I say, that's where I've plumbed up to fish my squat and pinky line over ground bait. So again, hopefully there should be fish in the area. Judging by how quick of a response we got initially at the start of the session, there are a few fish in this area of the canal. So if they have backed off away from the punch crumb, then I should be able to go onto the squat and pinky and hopefully wean them onto it while I'm fishing the punch down the track. Again, one thing I like to do when I'm fishing squat and pinky is try and build the swim, so I'll put in a little ball of ground bait and just keep feeding squats for say 15-20 minutes, maybe half an hour, try and get the level of competition up, and hopefully when we do go over that line we should catch nice and quick. But it doesn't look like there's anything happening over this 6 metre line where I've topped up. Again, it's something I can come back to later on. It might turn out that 1 or 2 fish are there, say all other areas of the peg die. It might well be that I can end up fishing this 6 metre line towards the back end of the session and picking up a few fish, but we'll give it a couple more minutes on this, and then like I say, we'll have a look down the track and see if there's any fish on that bread line. Right, we've just caught another fish now on that 6 metre line after we've topped up, but it's taken quite a while for that bite. So again, it makes things a bit interesting. It's another nice stamp roach, this. So it looks like it's somewhere we might be able to come back to and just nick the odd fish whenever we need to. Again, lovely stamp canal roach to be catching those, absolutely immaculate condition. But I think what we'll do now, we've given it a couple of minutes down the track to rest, so we're going to have a quick look and hopefully there should be 1 or 2 of these fish down there. Again, with the wind picking up as well, bit of a more manageable distance of pull to fish, so we'll have a look on that now. Again, the rig that I'm going to use on that is exactly the same, but quickly run through it because it's slightly beefed up in terms of the capacity of the float. Again, at the top end, I've got a number 4 solid elastic again. Use this for all my bread punch fishing. Again, we've gone for quite a long line with a little number 13 back shot just behind the float, and in this case, rather than it being a 4x12s as it was for fishing across, we've got a 4x14s because we've got 4 foot of depth. Again, no point using light floats in that kind of depth, especially the way that I like to fish bread punch. Again, the main line there's 093 Drennan Suplex. Same again, a bulk and 2 number 11 droppers, nice and compact, above that 5-inch hook length of 075 Drennan Suplex fluorocarbon, and that in this case down to a size 20 Camazam B511. Again, on the longer line, I was expecting to get bites fairly quickly, but I wasn't sure on the stamper fish, and I just wanted to make sure I could get a quick start, so slightly smaller hook. In this case, we're fishing down the track. As I said earlier, there's a chance of the odd bream in some of these sections, equally skimmers and big roach, so a slightly bigger hook just gives you a bit more security. But again, just going to start off on a 3mm punch, but this is an area of canal that I might well look to step up to a 4 or even a 5mm punch if the stamper fish is really small. Again, I know lower down on the canal there's plenty of gudgeon, so sometimes fishing smaller pieces of punch you can get plagued with them, but we'll just have a look. As I say, a 3mm punch should catch everything that swims. So just take off that extra section, find my marker, then lower that rig in, exactly the same process. Again, if we do start catching fish here, because it's a shorter distance, as I say, we're fishing effectively 4.5 metres, something like that, top kitting 2 halfway down the final section. Should be able to catch fish nice and quick there. As I say, if not, then I can always go back onto my original bread line as well. Say by topping up with small amounts just gives you plenty of leeway in terms of moving between lines. You're not sort of overcommitting to one area or spoiling one area of the peg and splitting your fish too much. At least here I've got a decent distance of a couple of metres between the 2 spots. As I say, about 1.5 foot difference in depth as well. So it'll be interesting to see if we do get plenty of bites down the track, or whether it turns out that the fish are just happy to sit slightly further across the canal. You can see the wind's picking up as well and the weather's not ideal. Bit of an indication there. So there could be 1 or 2 fish down there. Again, because I've put in a slightly bigger ball of punch crumb, sorry, it could mean that it takes the fish that little bit longer to settle over the top of it. But we'll sit this out for again 4 or 5 minutes, just see if we can get a couple of proper bites on it. Bit of an indication there again. But it might be that I have to spend another 5 minutes on that sort of 6 metre line on the punch and try and get a couple of fish on that, and hopefully then they'll settle over this line. Again, because we're trying to catch a decent net of fish today and pretty much fishing it sort of like we would a match, trying to get the most out of it in the 6 hours that we've got, I'm looking to try and keep fish coming as regularly as possible, to be fair. What I don't want to be doing is sitting waiting for bites when I know there's other fish to be caught in the peg. So I'll give this another couple of minutes, and I may well go back onto that 6 metre line and just see if there's a few fish turning up there as well. Because I don't think there's any fish settled in numbers over this ball of punch crumb just yet. So it might take a little bit longer for them to turn up. Right, so like I say there, we've had a go across on that 6 metre line, come back short onto this bread line that we've fed down the track in the deepest water, but in all fairness it's not really happening there for us. I've had a gudgeon and lost a little roach as well, but there's, well, by comparison, hardly any bites, and especially when you're bread fishing you're looking for lots of indications and plenty of fish in the peg. So I put a decent bit of feed down there, so you never know, a couple of fish might turn up a bit later on. But what I'm going to do now is look to feed that squat line, so I'll give it a couple of seconds and just see if this float goes under. Doubt it will though. No, so what I think I'll do now is feed my squat line. So one thing that I did mention earlier about fishing the squat is that I don't want to go on it straight away, so I want to try and build the peg. So because I've got a couple of bread lines fed, I can just interchange between those two and try and get bites while I try and build that squat line. So what I'm going to do is just put in a small ball of ground bait, and I'm not going to squeeze it too tight. I'm using a heavy mix just in case we get a lot of canal movement, but what I'm doing is just giving it a light squeeze so it'll settle on the bottom, but it will break up nice and quick. So as you can see, that's what I'm going to feed on that line. So I'll quickly whack the other section on. So I say we're fishing at the end of the 6th section, so about 6 and a bit metres, something like that. So nice short distance. Again, when you're catching fish on the squat, what you want to be trying to do is catch them nice and quick. So I'll just take the bait box lid off. I'm going to put a couple of squats in the pot. As you can see, tiny little particles of food there. And these will just go to the bottom and settle there under this ball of ground bait, and then what I will do is loose feed squat over the top. So that's the initial feed on that line, and I'll probably start to ping squats for about 15-20 minutes before I actually have a look on it. So I'll get this potted in and I'll run you through the rigs that I'm going to use over that line. Again, I've got a far bank marker, and as I say, it's about 5 or 10 feet from my bread line. So hopefully the fish that are in that area should move into the bread. Oh, sorry, move off the bread line onto that ground bait and settle over that. So now that's fed, I'll quickly run you through the rigs that I'm using on that line. I've got 2 set up, and because I'm expecting to catch a smaller stamp of fish and not so quick on that line, I've actually started fishing really nice and light. So I'll run you through the lightest setup. As you can see, depth wise, we've probably got nearly 3 foot, something like that there. And this first rig I've got set up pretty much at dead depth. In terms of the elastic, as I say, I'm fishing really nice and light. That's a number 2 elastic. The main line again is 093 Drennan Suplex, and the float in this case is a little Census. It's called a Census Lucy, I think. As you can see, a really short float, little wire stem, really short fibre bristle, and a nice sort of stable shaped body, sort of a rugby ball shaped body. So nice and stable, but it'll settle really quick, and with that short bristle it'll be fishing nice and fast and should fly under at the slightest bites. Down the line on this rig, I've just got spaced out, I think is it 6 or 7 tiny number 7 styles, are the smallest size styles that you can get. And as you can see, I've got those spread about 5 inches apart, and this is a rig that I'm looking to fish through the water and lay in. In terms of the hook length, that's 075 Drennan Suplex fluorocarbon, and that's down to size 24 gamma green hook. Really nice light pattern. As I say, I'm just trying to get bites on this, just try and judge what's in the peg, but if we do hook a decent fish, we've got a chance of getting it out just about. As I say, the nice and light rig for that one, and I'm going to be laying that one in. The float size, if I didn't mention, there's a 4x8 by the way, so really nice and light. The other rig that I've got set up for this line is just a beefed up version, and this is sort of a rig that I'll use to get the bait to the bottom and try and isolate better fish. So in terms of the top end, we've gone for a slightly stronger elastic. That's a number 3, exactly the same float and main line, but in this case it's a 4x12's float. Again, same kind of style pattern, but this pattern lends itself well to fishing through the water, but equally lends itself to using a bulk like we're doing on this rig to bomb the bait to the bottom. So I've got a bulk at about sort of 12 to 14 inches above the hook length knot, and then just 4 of those little number 7 styles to create a nice steady fall for the last sort of couple of feet of the hook bait. And again, I can always bulk those down should I need to move these shots around. And exactly the same hook length with 5 inches of 075, but this time to a size 22 Kamasan B511. Lighter, a nice light hook, but slightly bigger. Again, going to be looking to use pinky on that probably. And pinky, when you're fishing pinky over squat, you'll usually catch better fish on it. So again, this is the rig that I'm looking to catch sort of the bigger fish over that line on. The other rig, I'm just trying to get bites. But as I say, that's fed now, so I'll make a note of the time, and I'll give it 15 minutes or so of just pinging the squats in over that line. Again, nice little catapult, feeding probably 15 to 20 squats and just creating a nice general area of feed over that line. So I'll keep doing that while I'm fishing the bread punch, just see if we can catch a couple of fish for the next 15-20 minutes. As I say, time wise, we're an hour and a half into the session, we've had a good start, so hopefully by the time we get onto that line with the squat and pinky, we'll start catching a few more fish. There's a fish now just down the track. Looks like a little gudgeon, this. Again, this is what I would expect to catch down there. It's quite a decent size one, that. But this is what I'm would be expecting to catch while I'm waiting for that squat line to build. So again, not too fussed as long as I'm ticking over, putting the odd fish in the net. Again, that one's just fallen to a 3mm punch again. But one thing I have done as well, very briefly, is just had a look for another couple of minutes over that 6 metre line on the punch without a bite. I've come back short over this line down the track and had a bite within probably a minute or so. So again, at least it tells me there's 1 or 2 fish there, and hopefully what I've noticed on this canal especially is that the gudgeon are the first fish to turn up over a bit of feed, in most cases anyway, especially down the track, and then the roach will eventually move in and push them out. So just feeding, as I say, probably 10 or 15 squats over that line where I put in the ball of ground bait and just fishing this out for the odd bite. Again, one thing that you might have to be wary of, especially fishing down the track in somewhere that's got such a defined boat channel as this with like a V, is that you are going to get a bit of debris down there. So it's worth just fishing an extra inch or so off the deck, just to make sure you're clear of any sort of rubbish that might be down there. But again, like I said, the bread will settle there nicely in that little area. It would probably roll into it anyway if I did feed it up the shelf a little bit. But what I can do is just fish slightly past the feed and lay on a bit of line on the bottom, just if I feel there's 1 or 2 better fish down there. Again, it's just little things to think about like that. From your plumbing up is just judging what you can do with your rig. So without changing the depth, I can push this an extra sort of 6 inches further past the bread feed and actually be laying on the bottom, which could be good for a bigger roach or something like that that might be sitting off the back of it. So I'm just going to try that now, fish, as I say, about 6 to 10 inches past it. But all the while I'm making sure that I keep that feed going in over the squat line. Again, I'm not quite sure how well this will work on this section because I don't know if there's great numbers of fish here. I mean, one thing that is apparent when there are a lot of small fish about, when you do feed squat, you can get lots of bites, lots of activity, and draw in a few better fish. Just had a little bit of an indication there on the bread. Whereas somewhere like this, it might be that bread's actually the best way to go, and it might prove that in a future session that it'd been better to start fishing bread further across. But again, I've got a couple of rigs in the box just in case we need to do that today, but hopefully the squat should work across there. Again, one thing I didn't mention as well, with the heavy rig that I'm going to use on the squat line as well, the 4x12s, I've actually set that about 1.5 inches over depth just to make sure I can get some line on the bottom. Again, just goes in line with what I was saying about trying to catch a few bigger fish on that rig. One thing that you will do as well when you're fishing or feeding squat, is you'll actually create a massive area of feed. It's very hard to feed them really accurately. So as long as you're creating a nice rough spread around your ball of ground bait, then hopefully the fish should start to shoal up there. Again, that's what it comes down to for me, is having that second rig set up, that lighter rig for fishing through the water, just in case I need to search around the shoal a little bit and see if fish are sort of taking bait off bottom. There's another fish now over the bread line. Could be a slightly bigger fish, this. Might be a roach, I'm not entirely sure yet, and it is. Again, I had to wait a while for that bite, but that's a lovely fish. Again, down the track quite often you will catch these bigger roach. Get another few ounces in the net. Like I say, we're not getting hundreds of bites there, but at least we're ticking over. So again, because I've had that try on the 6 metre bread line, I can effectively write that off now. I don't think I'll feed it at all. Just leave that, and if like I say, if we get desperate a bit later on, we can always have a look back there. But hopefully this bread line will now come good. As I say, if those roach have moved in and pushed the gudgeon out, then we might get a good run of those for 20-30 minutes, something like that, and all the while we'll be building that squat line and hopefully try and catch a few fish there later on. Again, just making sure I've got that other piece of bread in the punch ready, just in case the fish do turn up in numbers here. Again, just looking for that mark on my pole, letting the rig settle. But you'll notice as well, when I'm fishing like this, I barely put the catapult down, and that's one of the things with squat fishing. It's because you're feeding such tiny particles, you need to keep the bait going in as near as constantly as you can. Again, like I say, just trying to build that peg. Hopefully with fishing quite a heavy, quite stodgy ground bait really, there should be a few better fish prepared to settle on the bottom and sit over that, and then like I say, by introducing plenty of loose feed over the top, should draw more and more fishing and get them competing. Like I say, it's not something that I've done a lot of, is fishing squat and pinky, but it's something that I've had a bit of a read up on. Like I say, I'm still trying to learn how to use it on the canal. But it'll be interesting to see today what we can catch over that line. It might be that this section holds quite a few perch, and as I say, fishing squat and pinky rather than bread gives us the chance of catching those. So I'll keep the bait going in over that line every sort of 30 seconds or so, maybe less. We'll just see how this bread line develops. Right, and there we go, that's another fish over that bread punch line. Again, we're having to wait a while for the bites here, but do look to be a good stamp of these roach knocking about there. Definitely seems that these have pushed out the gudgeon. So hopefully we'll be able to keep ticking over catching these. I don't think we'll catch them anywhere near at the rate that we were catching them across at 6 metres. But these are really good weight builders still. Again, really fat roach, that one, you can see. Nice positive bite as well. So it might be because I fed a slightly bigger ball of punch crumb down there that it's taken them a bit longer to settle over it, but again, it's worth doing that just in case there's 1 or 2 skimmers present. So like I say, by feeding this, giving ourselves somewhere to go after the original bread line dried up, and it's started to produce now, although it's taken a bit longer than expected. I'll just try and find the mark on my pole. Although it's taken a bit longer than expected, at least we've had 2 roach now for the best part of sort of 6 ounces, and a couple of gudgeon as well. So again, while we're approaching the 2-hour mark of the session, probably got a couple of pound of fish in the net, which isn't bad going at all. Like I say, hopefully later on we might even encounter 1 or 2 bonus fish when we start fishing chopworm and caster. Right, so I'm now going to go into the squat and pinky line. As I say, we've fished those 2 lines with the bread, rotated them and only managed 2 roach and a couple of gudgeon over that shorter line down the track. Again, one of those things, the fish just haven't turned up there, but one of the things that you've got to bear in mind is once the bread fishing's done like that and it's completely dried up, it's very rare that the fish are going to come back to it, so that's why it's important that you do have a squat and pinky line or something to go to basically. So with that said, I'm going to start on the lightest rig with just a single squat on the size 24 and just see if there's been any fish picking off the feed that's been loose fed. Again, with this rig, I'm just going to lay it in over the top of where I've been loose feeding and try and swing it just slightly past the pole tip. Again, fishing a fairly long line with clear water conditions in canals. I don't like to fish really short lines if I can get away with it, especially with the wind today. There's no virtue in fishing a short line as it'd ruin presentation really quickly. I'm just pinging a few squats over the top of that. Like I say, it's a bit of an unknown quantity as fishing squats up here. It's not something that I've personally done on this canal really, is fish squat and pinky. It's something that I've wanted to have a go at, but judging by the size of the fish on here, it might well be that a bread and more positive sort of ground bait approach might be better, but we'll give the pinky and squat a try and just see if we can get a couple of bites. So again, just laying that rig in. Bit difficult with the wind as well, especially sort of makes the loose feeding much harder. Like I say, just trying to get a rough spread around the float and hopefully there'll be 1 or 2 fish that have settled over the ground bait. There we go, that's a fish on straight away. Not a big fish, and again that's why we're using such light elastics on this. Nice little roach that time. But again, that's why we're using such a light number 2 elastic on this line and small hooks, just to make sure I can get bites nice and quick. One good thing about squats as well is they're quite a durable little hook bait, so should be able to catch a couple of fish on this. Again, that's a really good response, and I think a lot of that's down to rest in that area of the peg. Like I say, just keep introducing the loose feed, get the fish's confidence up, and hopefully they should start competing really aggressively for those squats that are going into the peg. Again, if we get lots of fish on this rig, lots of bites, then what I will do is move on to the heavier rig and try a pinky. Equally on this rig I can try a pinky on the hook as well, but if I'm looking to catch bigger fish, the odds are that I'll be looking to try and fish to the bottom a bit more. And that's another one on now. Again, amazing the difference that we've been fishing bread only about sort of 5 or 10 feet away from this. That's another nice roach this time. And not had a single bite. I've gone straight in there on the squat and caught 2 fish immediately. So that's a lovely fish to catch, that one. Again, with such tiny little floats like these that we're using today, the float flies under at the slightest indication, you can strike nice and quick. One thing that I will do just quickly is probably tension this elastic up just a little bit. Especially if I'm catching fish of that stamp. I don't want to hook sort of a pound roach and have it run into the tree, so I'll just take a second to tension up this elastic, and then we'll get back out there and try and catch a couple more. Right, so I've just tensioned this elastic up now just a little bit. As I say, that's due to the size of fish that we might be encountering across on the squat. You can see the wind's picked up a bit, which is making things a little bit more difficult with feeding. The last thing I want to be doing is, normally what I would do on, say, still waters, is have an extra section behind me, just sort of balance the pole out and make life a little bit easier. But again, on canals you don't want to risk that with the towpath being behind you. So I'm just having to sort of make do, so it's a little bit awkward. But I'm just making sure that I take my time when I do feed. That was a bite straight away there. When I do feed, that I try and get it as accurate as possible. Again, there's no point rushing and spreading fish all over the peg. It's a good thing as well with these floats, although they're very short bristles, because I'm using such small shot, you can really read the bites very well. You can tell how far down in the water column the fish are actually taking the bait as well. And that gives you a good indication as to whether the fish are settling over your ground bait or whether they're coming right up in the water and feeding. So what I'm doing is feeding and then trying to lay the rig in and amongst the feed. Again, hopefully try and full 1 or 2 fish. It's far from ideal with the wind being as bad as it is, but as I say, I've got a slightly heavier rig that I can use to bomb the bait down, and that should make life a bit easier with the wind really. Again, because I've had those couple of bites on the squat already, that was another one there. What I may well do is look to move on to the pinky next as the hook bait. Again, it's a bit of a change bait, slightly bigger, and with it I've got a choice with me today of whites and fluoros, so I can use one that's effectively trying to imitate the squats but slightly large, using a white pinky, or using a fluoro one as a real standout bait. And hopefully using something like that often gets you those extra bites and those quicker bites and bigger fish as well. So it's one of those things when you're using squats, is having pinkies with you as a change bait. I've equally got a few traditional maggots as well, just as an option in case I do think there's 1 or 2, you know, really good quality fish down there. There's another fish on, just dropped off that one. So like I say, I brought myself a real selection of bait today, and hopefully that should mean that we keep the fish coming quite regularly. As you can see, it's a bit of a nightmare to catch the rig there in the wind. So I'll have a couple more chucks on the pinky, and then I think on the squat, sorry, and then I think I'll try the pinky next. As I say, there's clearly 1 or 2 fish down there, which is really good. And one thing that you're looking for with squats and pinkies is to try and build the peg, so as time goes on, the stamper fish generally get larger. Another little thing to note as well is you'll see that I'm fishing sort of towards the bush a little bit. And one thing I have done is plumbed up my chop worm and caster line quite tight across to the bush, so what should hopefully happen, because a few squats will tend to just go past the area that I'm actually fishing in, they'll end up sort of nearer that bush, especially with the movement of the water and the wind as well. So it should push a few fish in towards that tree, and again, that's an area that I will fish later on. Right, there's another fish now on the squat. As soon as the wind dies down, it makes presentation that much easier. Feels like another nice roach, this. But it's one of those things with the feeding squats. As soon as the wind gets up, it's an absolute nightmare. So one thing that I am debating is whether it's worth switching to using a little pot on the end of the pole. It's another nice stamp roach, this. Bit too big to swing on a number 2 elastic. But all the fish so far have fallen to squats, so I'm not going to change for the time being. As I say, the peg will just build and get stronger and stronger. So if I can catch them on this light rig with squat, then I'm going to stick at it for a little bit, and then I'll look to change eventually onto fishing pinky on the slightly heavier rig, that 4x12s, and fishing to the deck a little bit more. Interesting, those better stamp fish have come off the bottom, so it does tell me that there should be 1 or 2 that have settled over the ground bait. But like I say, fishing a nice light rig like this, we're getting plenty of bites, and it's just a case of trying to negotiate the wind when it comes to the feeding. I say using little cad pots is one thing you can do with squats, especially when the wind does get up, but it equally creates a bit of a problem with adding a bit more resistance to the end of the pole, which again can sort of compromise your presentation. So it's one of those things I'm having to weigh up, and with the wind being very changeable, it's a bit difficult to judge whether it's worth switching to a cad pot or just persevering with the catapult. As you can see now, it's pretty much flat calm. It's perfect for this style of fishing. There's another fish on now. So I'm getting plenty of bites on the squat. Just going to feed as soon as I've hooked a fish. As I say, just have to be really careful using little size 24 barbless hooks. Might just about be able to swing this one. And these are sort of the fish that I'd expect to catch on the squat. Nice little roach, good ounce or so. As I say, getting plenty of bites as well. So hopefully we'll be able to build this area of the peg. As I say, I've effectively scrapped the bread punch fishing for now. And as soon as this starts to look like it's going to die off a little bit, then what I will do is switch to fishing chopworm and caster across, and hopefully do that for the last hour or so in search of the odd bonus fish. But again, a fantastic stamper roach to be catching on the squat, these. Be interesting to see if the odd perch makes an appearance as well, but like I say, can't really grumble with catching roach of that size. There's another one on now. So this is the kind of sport that we're looking for on the squat. Getting really quick bites, trying to draw lots of fish into the peg and catching fish of all various sizes. As you can see, that's a smaller fish this time. And they're taking the bait really confidently now. And again, that's what it comes down to. When you can keep the feed going in nice and regularly, you can get the fish taking the bait really aggressively. Plenty of competition, lots of bites, so then it just becomes a point of whether you stick with light rigs just catching whatever's in your peg, or whether you move on to heavier rigs and try and isolate a few better fish on the deck. Again, one thing that I think's helped as well is choosing to fish this line at the same depth as what we were using for the initial bread punch line. As I say, that fished really well, so there's no point moving into shallower or deeper water. If that's the depth that the fish are happy to sit at, then that's the depth that might as well try and catch them at. So again, just laying that rig in, pinch of squats, firing those over the top of the float, then just watching as that float settles for the bites. As I said, a lot of these bites have been really quick. It's a bit of an indication there, so there's definitely a few fish swimming around up in the water as well. There's another one on now. It's a nice little sharp indication on the float. Nice little strike, you're into the fish. Again, just feed a few squats and ship back. Again, on a day when the conditions are better, you can get into a really good rhythm of catching fish like this. might probably net him, just in case. Don't think it's worth swinging him. Like I was saying, if you can catch these fish at speed, that's when you can put a really good weight together on the canal. Again, amazing, as I said, considering that we were fishing bread punch about 5-10 feet away. Couldn't get a bite, and as soon as we've gone onto the squat, it's been a fisher chuck. So it just sort of goes to prove what we already know about fishing canals and bread punches, that you don't tend to catch on it for very long. It's definitely been the case today. As I say, topping up's not done anything for us when it's come to the bread punch fishing. So just fishing a little nugget of a bread punch, sort of the size of a golf ball or a Konkan, and fishing that out's been the best. But this is when it becomes important to have other lines to go to. So one thing that I'm doing as well when I'm firing the squats in is firing them more at the water. Really sharp little bite there and missed it. Sort of firing them in a line onto the water as best I can. As I say, I don't want them to stay in the air too long before they get caught by the wind and spread out a bit too much. And equally, by firing up the water like that, makes a lot more noise as well. Missed another bite there. I think if this wind picks up, then I'll pretty much be forced to be using that 4x12's rig. There's another bite there. Still getting plenty of bites, there's loads of fish in the peg. So I'll give it a couple more minutes on this and then I will switch to that 4x12's and just see if I can catch a few better fish or catch a bit more regularly. As I say, it is a biter chuck now, and most of these bites are coming when the float's pretty much reached sort of 3/4 depth, something like that. That's when the fish seem to be having it. And there we go, that's another one on. Just pulled out of that one. So I think what I'll do with that, I'll move on to the heavier rig, slightly larger hook as well, so I should be able to land a few more fish. See if I can catch this rig. So we'll have a switch onto that now and see if that proves any better. Right, it's after the wind and things like that there. We're going to have a quick go on the heaviest rig on that, over that Groundbait squat line. So I'm going to just start off with a couple of squats. Being that they were working quite effectively fishing shallow, I didn't have to go on the pinky. I'm just going to try a squat on this rig and see if that works. Or a couple of squats I should say, and again on this rig I'm fishing about 1 inch over depth, so if we're lucky, if there's any sort of skimmers or hybrids we might encounter a few of those, and equally the better roach. Again, that's why we've fed quite an inert and heavy groundbait mix, just to see if they do turn up over that. Again, the loose feed squats will attract the small roach, but by putting a nice heavy groundbait ball down there, it might well attract a few skimmers and hybrids, so we'll just see how this pans out. Right, and there we go, there's a fish on the deck rig. This one's just fallen to a couple of squats on that little size 22. Looks like a nice little roach, this. Again, hopefully we'll be able to get that back out there nice and quick and get into a rhythm of catching these on the squat. Right, there we go, we've just hooked another fish now on the bottom with this heavier rig. Feels like a decent fish though, but we've had to wait for a short while for that bite. Another one of these roach. Actually, it's a big gudgeon, this. That's a fantastic size gudgeon actually. But I think what I'll do now is go on to that lighter rig again. As you can see, that's a really big gudgeon, that one. And I think what I'll do is also top up with a ball of groundbait as well, just to see if I can get a few bigger fish in the peg. Right, so we've given that chopworm and cast line plenty of time to settle. I had a go where I've refed with the squat, but there's nothing there. I think probably what I've done by this point is ruin that kind of area of the peg by overfeeding it. 3 lines in pretty much the same kind of area. As I say, I just thought it was a bit of a shot to nothing while we let that chopworm and caster settle. So I'm just going to have a go over it, just with 2 fluoro pinkies on this size 20 on the lightest rig. So a bit disappointing really how the pegs just sort of dried up on us. So I think we'll just fish it till the end of the 5 hours rather than the 6 that we thought we were going to do initially today. But like I say, we've had a cracking start, but it just seems over that mid part when the wind's picked up, we've not really been able to fish the squat and pinky line as effectively as we'd have liked to. And as I say, I think that's cost us quite a bit in terms of the weight that we've caught. So most of what we'll have caught today will have been in the first couple of hours, but we'll just see if there's anything over by that tree now. I say it could be that the fish have backed off there. Is it some sort of form of refuge for them away from where I've been fishing for them effectively, like I say, at 6 metres on bread and the couple of different ground bait lines that I've fed. So looking back at the session, there are a couple of things that I would have considered rather than feeding bread down the track. I think a ground bait line down there might have been a bit more effective at sort of 5 metres just out of the deepest water. That might have been a slightly better option to try and catch skimmers and big roach. I say it just wasn't something that I tried to do today. As I say, I started with bread, worked really well initially on that 6 metre line. As I say, that dried up, came in short of sort of 4 metres, something like that, and it didn't really produce there. Just had a couple of roach and a couple of gudgeon, and then we started fishing the squat and pinky line. And as I say, that fished really well until the wind started to pick up and made the loose feeding really pretty much impossible. And I think by continuing with the loose feed there, although we kept getting a few bites, I think the fish were just scattering a bit too much, and as I say, eventually that's just sort of ended up being useless really, to be honest. As I say, the fish have pretty much spread out too much. We've not been able to get any bites, so we'll have a go on this chopworm and cast line just to see if we can catch anything there. But like I say, we've probably got another half hour left of the session, so we'll just see if there's a bonus fish lurking over there. Again, I don't think my squat and pinky lines are going to be any of them, pretty much, I don't think they'll have picked up basically. So I won't be going back on those. So as I say, I'll just sit it out on this and just see if we can tempt a bonus fish or 2. Right, so we've given it a fair while on this chopworm and caster line, but unfortunately there's no more bites. It could be that due to the activity of me sort of fishing here, that a lot of the fish have just pushed out of this section. It could be that they're quite wary as well, being that it's not an area that will get fished that often in favour of sort of like Sparth Reservoir and other places around here. So it could be just one of those things, but I definitely think I've done a few things right today with the bread and the squat and pinky fishing. But as I say, unfortunately I don't think I've quite got as much out of the peg as I could have done. Possibly when the weather warms up as well, this chopworm and caster fishing will be much better, but as I say, today there's been absolutely no signs, which is quite surprising being that it's a nice feature. But as I say, the temperatures are down and it's one of those things with canals, they can be a bit hit and miss sometimes. So like I say, I think we'll get this shipped in, get the rigs tackled down and things like that, and then we'll get the net out and just see what we've caught in the 5 hour session that we've had today. Right, so as you can see there, we've come to the end of our session here on the Huddersfield narrow canal. As you can see, conditions throughout the session did change quite a bit, and with the wind and things like that, it certainly made the fishing on the squat harder, but we had a really good start and caught a good stamp of fish. Plenty of roach on the bread punch before it started to dry up, a few gudgeon as well, and when we went onto the squat, had plenty of bites, had a few roach, a few gudgeon, and equally a couple of little skimmers and even a hybrid. So we had a cracking little session. It's just a shame that the wind conditions have affected it, and like I say, we didn't manage to get onto the chopworm and caster line, but we'll definitely be back on this bit of canal and hopefully give it a proper run and hopefully catch a few more fish. So as always from Last Cast, thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you on that next episode.